Hello and welcome to LionWing Talks, a show where we discuss all things LionWing, tabletop games, Japanese games, and localization. I'm Bradley Hailstorm, founder and president of LionWing. This is episode 32 for October 27, 2021. It's good to be back again, folks. Week 3 after returning from hiatus, 3 weeks in a row. I shouldn't say that like it's some big accomplishment. We did 30 episodes in a row of this show, so like getting to episode 3 after the hiatus really should not be that big of a deal, but it kind of feels like it. Af has just come in time. Yes, thanks Af for joining us, as well as Fern and Dark Sakura and anyone else who's joining us who hasn't mentioned themselves in the chat. It's good to be back. I suspect tonight is going to be another short show. Since returning from hiatus, these shows have been shorter, which is getting back to what my original vision for this stream was in the first place, which is like an hour-long show every week. Somewhere along the way, I lost my way, and we were hitting like 2.5-hour shows there for a while. Try not to go back to that, folks. Try not to go back to that. Tonight, though, it's short because another week of not really having any questions from the community. I suspect I know why that is. But also, not a lot of project updates either. Really just one big update, and that is for Picaresque Roman, and then some additional follow-up stuff. That has mostly already been talked about. So I don't suspect we'll break an hour tonight, unless you all in the chat get real crazy and start asking me all sorts of questions that I have to answer on air. And then, I'll talk for however long you want me to talk. But LionWing right now is in a bit of a chill period. We're not doing a whole lot outwardly. So it's been a couple months now since Wild Hunt Festival was fulfilled. So the hype around Wild Hunt Festival is just no longer there. The game has come out. Most people have played it. And great feedback on that game. I mean, certainly there's still people playing it, naturally. But, it's not like when a game first gets fulfilled and everyone's playing it at the same time. You have all these questions. You have all this interest. You have people just kind of talking about it, especially with Wild Hunt Festival, talking about builds, talking about what works, talking about what doesn't work, et cetera, et cetera. But, that was months ago. And so that's done. And we haven't had another game get into people's hands since then. So it's been quiet. It's been quiet lately. And it's probably going to remain quiet for a little bit. Well, that's actually probably not true. I keep forgetting that we're going to be delivering the digital goods for Picaresque Roman this week. So maybe that picks back up some conversation and some interest in Discord and on social. Though I've realized that the folks who play board games / card games and the folks who play tabletop RPGs, certainly there's some overlap there with those audiences. And at the same time, they seem to be pretty different audiences for the most part. And the tabletop RPG crowd is just engages differently than the crowd who is into board games and card games. So who knows, even though Picaresque Roman is being delivered this week, who knows what that'll do for the chat room. Hopefully it brings in some folks and gets people talking. And I would love to see some games being run through Discord. I know Churcher, one of our regulars in Discord, talked about, I think, first or second week of November, running a game for the community of Picaresque Roman, which I'm really looking forward to. I'm just really looking forward to Picaresque Roman, but we'll get to that here in a minute because we do follow a format here. I try to follow a format anyway, and that is we start off with our project updates where I go through each of the LionWing projects, kind of give you a status report where we're at, check in with what's going on there, and then we move into our Q&A session. But tonight we do not have a Q&A session. I think this is the first time in 32 episodes, technically 33, because we had that one episode right before we went on hiatus where I was super sick and I hadn't slept in a long time, and I didn't even post the episode because it was so bad. So it's actually been 33 episodes, but officially only 32. In the 32 episodes, I don't think we've ever had no questions until tonight. So it's a first, that's okay. We'll get in, we'll get out. And let's get to some project updates, starting with Picaresque. So, of course, if you've been keeping up with the Kickstarter updates, if you've been keeping up on things in Discord, keeping tabs on just the project in general, then you already know the news that I'm about to share, and that is we are delivering the digital goods of Picaresque this week. So it'll probably be the very last minute of this week, but hopefully it'll be this week. So we are tidying up some things. We made, Winona probably wants to kill me. We made a last minute change today to a formatting thing in the scenario booklet, which I don't think she was too pleased about. I was just kind of like looking over everything, because you can never look at your product enough when it comes to like, before you deliver it to the printer, or before you deliver it to your customers, your backers, your audience. Like, you always want to look at it again, right? At some point, there's got to be a cutoff. At some point, you got to say, okay, I got to stop making changes. I got to stop making edits. I got to stop, improving whatever. Because if you don't impose some kind of like cutoff, you will just continue to find things about a project in perpetuity, and then it'll never get released. So at some point you do have to sort of draw the line. Now, I've already drawn the line, and then I crossed it today, so I broke my own rule. And it was a silly formatting thing. It wasn't like a big thing. It wasn't like I was catching a mistake or anything. It was like literally I was like, you know what? I don't like the way this looks. I think I want it to look this way. And then Winona was like, okay, I don't love that. We're supposed to be done with this project today, like totally, but okay, I'll humor you. And she sends it back to me. She sent back to me what I had given her, like, hey, this is what I think I want to change to. She mocked it up for me. She sent it to me, and I was like, nope, that is not it. She was like, well, what about this? And I was like, that's it. That's the one. And so she was less than pleased, but it'll be for the best. So we are looking to deliver all those digital goods. So that's going to include the core rulebook, the scenario booklet, which actually has a title now. I'll talk about that here in a second, as well as the GM booklet, the soundtrack, and the info card set. So everything this week, which is exciting. It goes to show what can happen when you're not hamstrung by supply chains and product being printed in another country that is across the world, that then has to be coordinated to get onto a ship, sail international waters, wait in a port queue, get through customs, get to the fulfillment center, and then get to all of you. It's quite amazing what happens when you can cut out all of that. It's like, hey, oh my gosh, it almost looks like we know what we're doing. So just really excited to be able to deliver those digital goods. Really excited for people to get the full book of Picaresque Roman. So I had mentioned in my update, sorry, I'm getting a gnarly glow. There we go. I mentioned in our Picaresque Roman update that we were probably going to deliver, or we were likely to deliver, all of the digital goods through the means of Pledge Manager. Because Pledge Manager handles all of our post-Kickstarter stuff. All of the late pledges, all of our fulfillment coordination, all of our spreadsheets, all of our digital reward delivery stuff, what have you. I'm set up with them, and I pay them through a services bundle. And in my services bundle comes that item, that line item that essentially says, like, we'll deliver digital goods for no added cost. So we've used them before for the digital delivery of the Testament soundtrack, the Wild Hunt Festival soundtrack. We'll use them for the delivery of the Embryo Machine soundtrack, some other stuff there too. They have yet to steer us wrong when it comes to getting digital goods into the hands of backers. And so it made sense to me to use them because I know they're not going to fuck it up. That's my thing. Like, I want to make sure that when we deliver goods to people that we're not fucking up. And Pledge Manager has a track record long before LionWing came along, but I can only speak to what it's been like working with them directly. They have yet to lead us astray. They've delivered every time that they've needed to deliver, and that's really important, that people get their stuff in the most efficient and effective way possible. Now, I knew that talking about that was probably going to upset some folks. I knew that, some people see like a distribution platform as their hub. It's their hub of gaming. I mean, you can look to the world of video games like Steam, and people won't buy certain games if games are exclusive to, say, like the Epic Game Store, because they want all their stuff in one spot. They want it all on Steam. It's where they spend their time. It's where they've built up their familiarity. It's where they've built up their friends list, their communities. It's where they have their achievements. Everything is there. And so having to then use a different platform for one game, or to play a game off their preferred platform is not ideal, right? So distribution platforms certainly have their fans, they have their following, and some people just sort of like live and die by that manner of thinking, which is fine. I really do understand it. As someone who has preferred digital platforms, I really know how that goes. And so I knew that saying like, hey, we might go with Pledge Manager was probably going to upset a couple people. And I think there were like 3 or 4 people who mentioned like, don't love this idea, hope you reconsider. I think it was 4 people, and 3 of which were like super kind about it. And because of how they expressed that concern, I was like, you know what? Okay, I'm going to take this feedback to heart. Like I always appreciate feedback. But I especially appreciate feedback when it's kind of framed in the right way. As a former therapist, words matter. Tone matters. But then there was someone who was a bit more forceful in their in what they would like to see, and that's fine. Everyone's got their own communication style. And was upset that we were maybe not going to use DriveThruRPG. And so there is a contingent of folks, a very small contingent of folks, 4 people out of 800, basically 900 backers. Very, very small, right? But I want to make sure that people's voices are heard. I want to make sure that, hey, if we can pivot and if we can appease everyone in this picture, I want to definitely consider doing that. I want to figure out how to do that. Pledge Manager not only... Well, there you have it. The worst part about that right there is, my strategy guide just got all bent up. Strategy guide that I've had for, 2 decades. That was in pristine condition, had been with me through, 8 moves, from college dorms to college apartments to, first house to this house. Never had it been never had it gotten damaged until right now. So cool universe. You're doing cool things. Hey, and you get to see my copy of F-Zero there for Super Nintendo and some other stuff that I've got going on there. It's funny. You stack all this stuff up and it looks like it's like meticulously put up there. And it is meticulously put up there, but how you get all of that stuff to stand up is a feat unto itself. And so behind all of that is is some tricky wiring, let's say. So I really don't like looking at that empty space right up there. That's going to drive me crazy all night. The worst part is not only did like all of that fall, but then it hit my Skies of Arcadia soundtrack, which then it looks like smashed into my Metroid Dread special edition. So cool. All right. It's a good night. So, yeah, DriveThruRPG. Not only did we want to go with Pledge Manager for the reasons I talked about there, but also we knew that speed was on our side if we went through Pledge Manager. And having not worked with DriveThruRPG before, it's just an unfamiliar platform for us. Now, I familiarize myself as much as I can with the platform. That's been part of this whole thing. We even mentioned it on the Kickstarter page that we are going to deliver our digital stuff through DriveThruRPG. And with that came a lot of research into what that platform is and how you use it, et cetera, et cetera. But reading about how a system works and then actually putting a product on there and launching it and getting it into backers' hands for them to redeem and to download are very different things. Like, you can read about how that happens all day long, but until you get in there and you do it yourself, it's a totally different beast. And so because I wanted to get the digital rewards out this week, Pledge Manager also made more sense. Because it's a system that I already know. So I mentioned in the update that this is an efficient way of getting things done, and it's an effective way of getting things done. Effective in that Pledge Manager is going to deliver, efficient and then in that I can get it to you all this week, hopefully. Now, someone came up with a decent idea, which I hadn't considered, and that is, well, let's deliver it through the Pledge Manager now, and then let's also give you the ability to redeem the digital book, through DriveThruRPG at a later date. And then it's like, you know what? I like that idea. I like when people see a problem and then they come to you with a solution. I don't like when people see a problem and then they complain about the problem and they don't provide a solution. Now, don't get me wrong. Customers should not have to come to the table with a solution, but it's always fantastic when someone does. And they're like, hey, you know what? I don't like this idea. Here's what I'm proposing. Then it's like, you know what? That's fantastic, because I hadn't thought about that. At the end of the day, LionWing is one person, and that's me. And Bradley only thinks in the way that Bradley thinks. And so I'm only ever going to consider a certain number of options, because that's how my brain is going to approach a problem, and it's how it's going to quantify its solutions. So I'm actually still undecided on what we're going to do here. If we're going to deliver exclusively through Pledge Manager, if I'm going to just try to get it out through DriveThruRPG and delay it by, into next week. If I'm going to do both, I'm not sure yet. But I'm going to make a decision shortly. Now, the problem is I'm leading a 2-day workshop starting tomorrow. So I've got no time to take care of this, after this show tonight, because I'm doing prep for that workshop, which is what I've been doing most of the day. And then I've got that workshop tomorrow and Friday. So, so undecided there on what I'm going to do. So the scenario booklet, I said I'd come back to that. The scenario booklet up until this point has just been called the scenario booklet. And it didn't sit with me. It didn't sit well with me that we were just going to put it out there into the universe with its official name being scenario booklet, the scenario booklet. What is that? That's terrible. So, we had been kicking around ideas what are we going to call this thing? Are we going to call it the Picaresque scenario booklet? Are we going to call it Picaresque scenarios? What are we going to do? Well, we came up with a name, finally settled on something last week. So we are coming down to the wire. I was very undecided. I had two names for the scenario booklet. I ended up going with a title and then a subtitle. So one of the titles, the one that we didn't choose, is we were going to call it Rise and Fall, and then give it its subtitle. We chose to go with the other option, but we kept the subtitle. So, I like to have some surprises when we deliver stuff. And so I guess I could just talk about the scenario booklet title now, and it would not matter at all, but it matters to me that I don't do that and that you all get to learn about its name when the files are delivered. So, Picaresque Roman, we're done now, which kind of makes me sad, actually. I had a lot of fun with this project. I had a lot of fun in its development. Some projects, they're just they're hell. And you don't have a lot of fun. Not by the end anyway. Every project starts off fun, but then you really get a gauge of how much you're enjoying yourself and how much you're enjoying working on that project after you've been doing it for about 6 months. The cool thing about Picaresque is it's been fun from the start. Now, I don't know if that's because it's an RPG and that's my preferred genre, or if just it's been that fun of a project, or if there were other factors that went into me being able to enjoy it more than some of our other projects based on my life and what was going on around it. I don't know. But it's been fun. This has been a really cool project. It's also a first for us, so a lot of the stuff was new, and with new stuff comes excitement. It comes anxiety and nerves and all that stuff too, fear of the unknown, but by and large, there was a lot of excitement around this project from the very beginning up until basically last week or today, I guess you could say, when I made that final change to the scenario booklet. It's been fun this whole time. I'm gonna miss this development. Like, we're done now. I don't really have any more involvement with Picaresque at this point, other than I'll be coordinating its printing and all of that and its shipping logistics, but that's not development anymore. That's like a whole other thing. So I'm waving goodbye to Picaresque, and I hope that we are able to come back to Picaresque at some other date in the future. You know, there is a supplement, a second book for Picaresque in Japan. Actually, there's a third book even. So there's a gameplay supplement that introduces a bunch of advanced mechanics and more lore about the city and its various factions. But then there is a book specifically designed to talk about its lore, and it provides scenarios as well. And it's also like part novel. It's a crossover of sorts. It's like part novel, part lore book, part scenario book. And so there are basically 2 Picaresque books that are out there in the world that are unlocalized right now, and I'd love to maybe revisit those things someday. We'll have to ultimately see how Picaresque sells, both like late pledge wise, but then also at retail. That'll give me a better understanding of, you know, how big the market is and how big the audience is for this kind of thing, and can I then justify coming back to Picaresque? It's weird, you know, when you localize a project and then there's additional content associated with that project, but you then localize that additional content, because then you're kind of left with this situation of like, it'd be kind of weird to come back to Kickstarter to kickstart a supplement for this game. That's kind of strange, right? Like, yeah, we could resell the core book and the scenario booklet in that campaign to catch people up and to catch newcomers who missed out on this campaign but ended up finding the second one. But it's a little strange as well, because it's hard to get excited about something a second time, right? Like, you can only ever have one first impression, and so an initial campaign is sort of like that first impression. Then if you follow up with a sequel campaign in any regard, you do lose a little bit of excitement because it's not new anymore. Now, you will gain some excitement of people who really love the original work and are like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to experience the supplement or the sequel or what have you. But you're certainly battling a little bit of fatigue there, and you're battling like you're battling that it's no longer shiny and new, right? And so you've got to work a little bit harder to get people excited. So I don't know. I don't know if we did revisit Picaresque with localizing its additional books, if we would utilize Kickstarter, or if we would utilize just sort of like a pre-order system, if we would utilize something else entirely, like a Game Found or something to that effect, or if we just go straight to retail and that would be it. But the pre-order campaign or the straight to retail would ultimately be decided based on what its sales numbers look like. So right now, like I said in last week's episode, I think it was last week's episode, that the game performed better on Kickstarter than I had anticipated. And so like right now we're sitting well, but you know, the success of a game is not decided by its Kickstarter ultimately. Even the really, 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 really successful Kickstarters, that game's success isn't defined just by that Kickstarter. It's everything that comes thereafter. Now, you could look to something like the Avatar RPG and say, well, that's clearly a success. And yes, but also there's this whole other part of that game's lifespan that is going to be dictated by the people who didn't show up for the Kickstarter campaign. Because while Kickstarter and Kickstarter backers make up a huge contingent of the board gaming community at this point, they don't make up everyone in the community, right? And there are people who won't back stuff on principle that they're not going to back something that's crowdfunded. And so you've got to have a successful Kickstarter campaign, but then you got to have a successful after Kickstarter campaign as well. And that doesn't mean just like getting people into late pledges. That means at like retail and at conventions and everything that goes into that. So Kickstarter, one piece of the pie, but not the whole pie, even if its piece of the pie is very big, right? So we'll see what happens with Picaresque. I've got faith in it. I think it's a really good game. I think once people play it, there'll be even more excitement, and then word of mouth is the best kind of marketing that you can get. And so I'm hopeful that people do play it, they love it, they talk to other people about it, and then people want to check it out that way. So the best way into a game is to get an endorsement from someone you trust, and so hopefully we can present a game that people like, and then they start telling other people about it, and then those people also check out the game. That will determine how successful Picaresque will ultimately be. So there you have it. Okay, so that's Picaresque. Gungun update, pretty straightforward. I just posted the official Kickstarter update about Gungun's situation 2.5 hours ago. And that update basically covered what we covered here last week in the show, and that is I'm expecting to get an email tomorrow from the printer saying that they are being loaded right now, or they're being loaded in an hour, or they've already been loaded, something to that effect. And then we play the waiting game of, okay, they're loaded, now what happens? All of this stuff is a, pardon the pun, it's like a roll of the dice. Are they going, once the pallets get loaded onto that container ship, is that container ship going to sit in port for the next 3 days or the next 3 weeks? It's hard to say. Like, where did Gun fall in the load order? Were we loaded on the ship early, and now we've got all these other containers that have to be loaded on, which come with their own timeline and logistical issues that might crop up, in which case, okay, we're one of the first pallets on, but this ship can, holds thousands of pallets. All right, we could be in for, a long couple weeks. Or did we get on right at the end and we're just going to wait a couple days or a week and then we're off? It's hard to say. It's impossible for me to know right now. And even the printer won't necessarily know where they are in the load order, because the printer is going to not hand deliver those pallets to the ship. That they hire that out to a runner company. And so that runner company will take care of it. And so I won't really have a good feel on that for a little bit until the printer gets word that, hey, we're leaving, ship's leaving port, your stuff was on it, here you go, here's confirmation. And then after that, open water is pretty easy. It just takes time. So once your container is on the water, in a non-COVID and in a non-holiday type of year and environment, most of the time your stuff's on the water for about 2.5, 3 weeks. COVID kind of changes things, though. I think with both Testament and Wild Hunt Festival, both games were on the water for 2.5 weeks. I think they were both around that 15 to 18 day mark. The only problem, though, is neither of those games were on the water during the holiday rush. So I don't have experience with my games being on ships at this time of year. So I don't know what to expect there. Full disclosure. I don't know how this is going to go because I don't have any experience with it. So I'm going to be like tiptoeing around the subject a little bit because I don't want to commit to something without ever having been in this situation to really know what the timeline is going to look like based on holiday clogs and backup. But let's assume there's not much of a backup and it gets to the West Coast here in the States in 20 days. That seems safe. Then it's like, all right, how long are we going to sit in that port queue? Because that port queue can be weeks. I mean, I mentioned it in the Kickstarter update. We've probably all seen the pictures at this point of container ships lined up for literal miles, in a queue. And that queue isn't like taken care of quickly. It's not like a queue that is a couple miles long is taken care of in a day. Like that's absolutely not how it works. That queue that goes on for miles is going to be taken care of the fastest in a week. Maybe 5 days, for 4 or 5 days. That's the fastest. And I know that there's been a concerted effort to bolster the personnel at ports and at docks to help with this kind of thing. But that's been like a recent push. It takes a long time to actually hire people and then to train people and then to get them competent at their jobs. That's not like going to happen in the next couple of weeks. That's going to happen in like the next 6 to 8 months, to where like we begin to see the fruits of our labor for this huge hiring push right now. So then you sit there in your queue for however long, and then you got to clear customs. And if it's like Wild Hunt Festival, that could take almost a month. And the worst part about customs is you have no line of communication. There's no one talking to you. You're just hoping that your stuff gets through customs, and you're just hoping that it then gets put on a train or a truck, and then you're just hoping it gets to your fulfillment center, and then your fulfillment center is going to confirm that it's shown up. But until it gets to the fulfillment center, you have no means of checking on that. No real means, anyway, of checking on that shipment and checking on those pallets. So you're just like, you got your fingers crossed, hoping like, oh, I hope it gets through customs, and I hope it gets through quickly. And boy, it's taken 3 weeks. I wonder what's holding it up. I'll never know. So who knows? But at the same time, they could be trying to expedite the process of customs because of the holidays and because of consumer spending habits around this time of year. And so they might be pushing stuff through. They might be more motivated to push stuff through faster in customs than they were in July. I'm not sure. Again, I've never had to fulfill a project around the holidays. I've intentionally never fulfilled a project around a holiday because it's a fucking nightmare. And yet here I am in a situation that I really should not have been in, but here we are. What can you do about it other than just now put your nose to the grindstone, get to work? The worst part about this is me getting to work, putting my nose to the grindstone really doesn't mean anything at this stage of the game because everything is out of my hands. Once it gets on to that container ship, I've got no control over anything. So this is always the hardest part about a project, but it's especially stressful right now because of the holiday craze. So in terms of a timeline, I'm hoping that Gungun gets to backers before Christmas. So that's 2 months away, which you'd think like, oh my God, that's forever away. And it kind of is. And you might be thinking, well, shit, if your stuff's getting on the container ship and it's the 27th of October, how are you, how's this going to take until the second or third week of December? And it's like, well, go back and put my timeline together. You quickly see how little bits here and there, a couple weeks here, a couple weeks there, suddenly adds up to like 8 weeks. So that's Gun and Gun. Wild Hunt Festival, no news there in terms of DLC 2. I reached out to the editor again. I got nothing in return. I'm beginning to get a little worried. I don't know what's happening there. There's not much more that I have to provide. There's not much more that I can update. There's not much more that I can do. This is my second or third time reaching out after not getting an answer previously. So we'll see what's happening there. I said last week that if there's ever a good time to like lose contact with an editor, it's after they've just finished fully another project for you, and Eli had just finished up all of the additional stuff that we added to Night Saga. Now it doesn't help us with DLC 2, obviously, but I'd much rather have him ghost me over a DLC pack for a game that people aren't necessarily keeping as close an eye on right now as they were previously and as they will be for Night Saga. I'd much rather have that situation than be in the middle of getting ready for one of your upcoming Kickstarters and they ghost you and you can't get a hold of them and your work is left unfinished and therefore you can't take it to Kickstarter because, well, you need those additional things that you were adding to the game to make it a more complete experience for your new audience. So I'm sort of counting my blessings in many ways, and at the same time, I'm a little worried because Eli and I have worked together now since 2016 because we were working together on my project that I had designed long before LionWing was LionWing. So I know the guy like pretty well at this point, so now I'm getting a little worried about him. So that's Wild Hunt Festival. I mentioned this in the Discord. Someone had asked about Night Saga, like, hey, is this going to be happening soon? So Night Saga is happening, but I don't know if it's happening soon. Costs are still pretty prohibitive right now. Night Saga is a large and it's a heavy game, which means it's expensive to print and it's expensive to ship. This is not an environment where you want to be printing large and heavy games. It's just not. Because cost has gone up with printing and shipping, and because there are less avenues to sell your product because of the constricted convention schedule, those things combining and sort of colliding is a bit of a recipe for a disaster for trying to print a big game right now if you're a small company as LionWing is. So, I look at the Resident Evil board game that Steam Forge just put out. That's a big, heavy, expensive game to print, but they're clearly okay. They're a day into their campaign and they've already pushed over 1.1 million. They're okay. They can take on a big, expensive, heavy game, and their game is pretty universally appealing. We are a small company with very limited resources, essentially living off of the success of our Kickstarters. And those successes appear larger on the outside than they actually are once you begin to itemize all of your costs. And you are producing a very niche product like Night Saga, anime meets Euro, pretty niche. And you begin to paint a clear picture of why that's probably not a good financial maneuver right now in this environment to be taking. And so I'm not opposed to making Night Saga our next Kickstarter, but I'm also not necessarily pushing that behind the scenes because we do have another game that is finished that is very small form that also is probably more universally appealing to not just our typical audience, but just the board gaming community at large. So it's more appealing. It's got a smaller footprint, which means it's cheaper to ship. There's less components, a lot less components, which means it's cheaper to print. Those three things sort of point a wise person in the decision of maybe I should take that project on next and move Night Saga into the middle of 2022. The problem is I don't necessarily see the printing and shipping situation getting better and getting less expensive anytime before the middle of 2022. I think we're pretty much locked into this nightmare scenario for the next, I'd say, 8 months at minimum. We might get a little relief in springtime, but I don't suspect a lot. I think things will finally get back to some semblance of normalcy by this time next year, early 2023. I could be off on that, but trying to read the tea leaves and talking to as many people as I have, I think that's probably a pretty fair estimate at this point. So where Night Saga falls into the release calendar at this point, it's kind of up in the air. It could go anywhere. And at the same time, we've got a lot of projects coming up that are not heavy, that are not expensive to print. Now, they might be expensive from like a licensing standpoint, but they're not expensive to print. And so I could see a scenario where Night Saga ends up getting pushed back by a whole year. Now, I don't want that to be the case because we've already done all the work on Night Saga. Even the stretch goals are finished. Everything about that damn project is finished. And so I want to get that to quote unquote market as quickly as possible because I got a lot of money tied up in it. And at the same time, I want to set that game up and LionWing up for the most successful campaign that we can have. And to launch that game right now, let's say in January of 2022, seems like it would be a bit of a blunder and a misstep for me. Now, maybe things miraculously change in the next 2.5 months and like the whole world is just caught by surprise at how much it does a 180 and how quickly things get back to normal with shipping logistics. I just don't see that happening, and so we'll probably prioritize other things. But I'm not committing because I do want to have that sort of escape hatch to say, like, nope, we're pulling the trigger on Night Saga, because sometimes I can be a little rash. And, I might wake up one day and say, you know what, I just really want people to play Night Saga, and I want to play Night Saga, and I want a printed copy sitting on my shelf. And you know what? We're launching that next. I want to reserve the right to make that decision should I make it. I just don't necessarily see myself making that decision, but I want the option. So, Night Saga done. Now it's just about finding the right spot for it. So then what do we have coming up? I've talked many times about how we've got projects through 2023. Not ready to fully talk about those things yet, but I will say that with the success of Picaresque Roman and RPGs being my thing, there are going to be more RPGs coming in 2022. Probably two. We're aiming for, I'm trying to be more realistic with my Kickstarters for 2022. We're aiming for 3 Kickstarters in 2022. There was a time when I wanted 4 Kickstarters a year, 1 per quarter, and I'm just realizing in a pandemic environment that just can't happen. Nothing moves quickly. It never moved quickly, but you could still kind of push things along to sort of move quickly. You can no longer do that. And so doing 1 a quarter is not necessarily feasible unless you begin to look at games that you can print faster, which would be smaller games and books. So you can bank on 2 more RPGs. Up until recently, we just had 1 confirmed RPG, and then we just inked a deal 2 weeks ago for another one. So I'll probably be prioritizing those to some degree. But then we've got something really, really exciting on the horizon. And if you've been following the Japanese board gaming scene, you've probably seen some successful games as of late. And we'll be localizing and publishing one of those very successful projects. So if you're not into RPGs, there's still stuff for you. That's the good news. And through 2023, it's not like we're all RPGs. We've got lots of other stuff coming, which is cool. And that's kind of where we're at right now. That's all that I feel comfortable saying right now. I'll probably reveal the next project around probably in December. My hands are sort of tied with revealing too many projects because I really only like to reveal projects when I can do something with that project, when I can lead up to something with that project. And since I can't lead up to a Kickstarter campaign, I'm not going to reveal anything just yet. Now, I had toyed around with the idea of revealing the project, putting up a mailing list, sort of like a Kickstarter lander page without Kickstarter. But I'm not sold on that idea. So that's why the long lull between now and when we reveal the next project. I don't know though, but again, I'm folks, sometimes I'm just a little rash. I might wake up one day and say, fuck it, I'm just going to announce the next project tonight. That kind of thing has happened at many points in LionWing's life. So it could happen again, but December would be my ideal timeline if I stay in the headspace that I'm in currently. I'll probably begin to drop hints about the next project in November, so it's not like you'll be completely without the ability to get a glimpse into what that project is, but I certainly will not be revealing it officially in November. So I might throw up a channel like I have with the past projects. I like to do code names, then throw up a channel in Discord, get people talking about what it might be. I might do something like that in November, but nothing more in November. And that takes us to the end of our project updates, and really that takes us to the end of the show because I don't have any Q&A. So we're going to be launching Operation Firestrike, which is our next Gungun tournament. We're going to be launching that once the games start getting fulfilled. We have some more content coming over the next couple weeks that are not just me. In fact, this Friday, I'm going to be putting up on our YouTube channel the Gungun matches that Af and Fern played just a couple nights ago. It's about a 2-hour session of Gun. So we're going to be putting that up on Friday going into the weekend. So if you've been looking to get your Gun fix, especially with tonight's news and tonight's official Kickstarter update, you'll be able to watch 2 hours of Gun play, of some high-level Gun play at that, which is always fantastic. And then I also know that Af did a He did a theory crafting video quite a while ago when I was on hiatus, and I want to get that out there as well. I'm going to wait a little bit on that. I'm going to put that closer to when fulfillment starts, just to kind of build up hype, because it's a really good theory crafting video. And so I think that probably would be best served once people are about to get the games, because they're going to be thinking about it a little bit more, and you need to be thinking about a game to get into a theory crafting video. So I don't want to be premature with putting that video up, but that is also kind of waiting in the queue. We are going to try to stream. If it's not me, it's going to be other people, and then we'll feature their video. Games of Picaresque. So that's going to be our big thing from the end of this week until, really until the physical items get fulfilled, but at minimum until the next project is announced. It's going to be a lot of Picaresque. It's going to be some fun events for Picaresque, that kind of thing. And then also we're going to be at the our first con. Hold on a second. The next con that we'll be at will be our first con of 2022. I know some people were asking about our convention schedule and all that jazz. So let me oblige you real quickly. Just want to make sure I get the name right. It's a new con. It's a first for its kind. Yeah, the Ice and Dice convention takes place January 21st through 23rd here in the Cincinnati area. So it's a new con. It was actually a Kickstarter convention. They launched that campaign for the convention maybe 2 or 3 months ago. It did well for itself on Kickstarter, so we'll be there. We'll be there all weekend. We'll be there vending, and then also going to try to run some events, probably with Picaresque, and if we have Gungun, maybe some Gungun as well. But certainly it'll be Picaresque heavy. So the convention encompasses all manner of tabletop games, but what they contacted us about specifically was Picaresque and their interest in Picaresque and wanting that to be sort of one of the big features of the weekend, and to therefore be a big feature of our booth and of our time there and of any of the events that we run. And so all of our games will be represented. You'll be able to buy all of our games there, but it'll be heavily Picaresque related. So, I wanted to mention the video that we're dropping on Friday as part of a new series. It's called Community Takeover, LionWing Plays Community Takeover. And if you've been following along with us for the past 6 months or so, you know that there for a while we were doing a sister show to this stream, and it took place on Mondays at 9 on Twitch, called LionWing Plays. And it was typically where me, Sin Theory, and Real Beans, our two community mods, would get together and we'd play some of our games. Embryo Machine, Gun, typically. It was very hard to coordinate all of our schedules, though. And so it finally came to me, and I had to come to the realization that, like, I can't commit to this any longer. People were looking forward to it, but I could rarely make it, and it just wasn't working. So the community came to me and said, hey, we liked LionWing Plays. Let us take over LionWing Plays for you, with your permission. It's like, actually, that's a fantastic idea. And so I think AF, or maybe it was Fern, or maybe together, they coined it LionWing Plays Community Takeover. And so this Friday's video of AF and Fern playing Gun will be the first episode in that series. And I'm going to give that its own series. So I'm going to make it separate from LionWing Plays. It's going to be its own thing. I think I'm going to do that, where it's going to be its own thing, and that way it feels a little bit more official, even though it's community-led. But I love community-led stuff. It's some of my favorite stuff. A long time ago, someone asked me, how do you feel about like fan-made content, community-made content? And I freaking love it, and that also means I love community-led events. So this is right up my alley. I love seeing people excited enough about our projects and our products to want to be involved in this kind of way. So if you're ever looking to play some of our games through Tabletop Simulator, or if you can get your group together to play some Picaresque Roman, or get your group into a physical space to play Wild Hunt Festival or Testament, let me know, and we will figure out a way to get it recorded and to put it on YouTube, because I love that kind of thing. I see folks in the chat. Let's see here. Sin, you said I got here in time to miss it. Yep. Okay, some of the highest gun play in the West. Let's not get it twisted. Yeah, so this first episode of LionWing Plays Community Takeover is indeed going to showcase some of the best in the West, if you will. So Af and Fern are prodigies of gun, kind of at the forefront. They are the bellwether fans, if you will. They are leading the rest of the fans, and really probably understand the game the most, at least here in the West. And so it's always cool to see them get together and to not only talk gun, but to play gun, and better yet, play it against one another. So it's always fun. I say it's fun. Maybe they're not having fun, but I think they are. So yeah, that's what's happening around the community. That's what's going to be happening in January with the convention. Sorry, my voice is going tonight. I've done a lot of prep for this workshop tomorrow, so I've been doing a lot of rehearsal, which means I've been losing my voice already, and the workshop hasn't even begun. Yeah. So if you are in the Cincinnati area, by the way, or you are someplace close to Cincinnati, Southwest Ohio, in January, hit me up. I'd love to have some volunteers. I'd love to have some folks run events. If you want to help helm the booth with me, because it's just going to be me. It's just going to be me there at the booth. Yeah, hit me up. We will figure out a way to make it happen. I would love to meet you all. I was about to say I love meeting people who have supported our stuff, but literally it's never happened. So this will be our first opportunity, our first convention that we'll be at. It makes sense and it feels right that it's here in our hometown. And if you're going to be around, let me know. It'll be fun. Af says, it's always fun. He's talking about getting together with Fern and playing some gun, but mostly always losing against him. Yeah. But I do say I have surprised him with some stuff. Hey, that's good to hear. I actually started Af and Fern, if Fern's still in here. I started watching the video this morning. I had it on the background when I was doing some workshop prep. So good stuff. I always enjoy watching you guys play. Anyway, so that's going to do it for tonight's LionWing Talks. Thanks everyone for checking us out. It's been fun. Hopefully my new mic setup has not made me hard to hear, and hopefully with my voice being the way that it is, that's also not making it hard to hear. We'll be back again next week. We do this every Wednesday. If this is your first time checking us out, we do this every week. We do it every Wednesday at 9. But if you can't join us live, you can always catch us on playback on YouTube, either later on in the evening or the next day if it's a particularly long episode and it takes me a while to upload that video. But I think last week it took me just 30 minutes to get that thing up, and it was up on YouTube by 11:30. I'm going to try to shoot for that same thing tonight. So it's been fun. I'll see you on the flip side. Until then, take care.